What if I told you that almost everything you touch, use, or consume has already crossed the ocean inside a ship built in China? From your bicycle to your living room couch, from your child's toy to the car you drive, they all share one thing in common. They sailed aboard vessels crafted by the same industrial giant. Welcome to Tellnomics, where we connect numbers to power. Today, we're uncovering how China achieved absolute dominance over the seas, and why the United States is now desperate to reclaim a throne it lost decades ago. China's dominance isn't symbolic, it's mathematical. According to Clarkson's research, roughly 34% of all ships operating in the world were built in China. And the number becomes even more striking when we look ahead. 57% of all ships currently under construction are being produced in Chinese shipyards. Back in 1999, China's share was less than 5%. In just 2 decades, Beijing transformed what was once a fragmented artisanal sector into an industrial machine that powers global trade. But how did this happen? The answer lies in steel, labor, and long-term vision. According to the World Bank, China produces more than half of all steel on the planet. This material advantage, combined with a labor force of hundreds of millions of skilled, disciplined workers, created the perfect foundation for shipbuilding supremacy. Today, a single Chinese shipyard can produce more vessels in 1 year than all shipyards in the United States combined, a contrast that perfectly symbolizes the historic reversal of global economic power. Meanwhile, the world's dependence on China has become nearly total. According to Yun Sitad, Chinese companies control 95% of the global production of shipping containers. That means even if a vessel wasn't built there, the container carrying your goods probably was. This silent web of dependency gives China not just profit, but influence, control over the physical flow of goods that sustains the global economy. Yet this supremacy also fuels fear. How does a former maritime superpower react when it realizes it has lost the very logistical dominance that sustained it for over a century? The United States is preparing for an industrial counteroffensive. But what's at stake goes far beyond ships. It's about sovereignty over global trade itself. And that leads to the question that will guide everything that follows. How does a maritime empire disappear? And can it ever be rebuilt? There was a time when the United States was the beating heart of the oceans. During World War II, the country built more than 2,700 Liberty ships, vessels that kept Allied supply lines alive and helped secure victory over Nazi Germany, according to the Smithsonian National Museum of American History. Each ship was built in less than 2 months. An industrial miracle powered by millions of workers and a nationwide network of shipyards operating 24 hours a day. It was the peak of American maritime supremacy, the moment when the United States didn't just command the seas, it manufactured them. But when the war ended, decline followed. The nation once synonymous with industrial might began to slowly deindustrialize. Factories moved to Asia in search of cheaper labor, and the American economy evolved into one dominated by services and finance. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, only 8% of the American workforce is now employed in manufacturing. The sea, once a symbol of national pride, turned into a symbol of dependence. Meanwhile, others seized the opportunity. In the 1970s, Japan controlled nearly half of global ship production. By the 1980s, South Korea had emerged as a new maritime powerhouse. And when China entered the game in the 2000s, the Asian takeover was complete. According to UNCTAD, these 3 nations now account for over 90% of the world's commercial shipbuilding output. But this isn't just an economic decline, it's a psychological one. Imagine the symbolism. The United States, once an empire built on steel and coal, now depends on foreign cargo ships to import its own cars. It's the living portrait of a globalization that went wrong. Store shelves across America remain full, but the jobs that filled them with pride have vanished. Donald Trump understands this better than anyone. By placing naval reconstruction at the heart of his rhetoric, he taps into a deep national wound, the nostalgia for a productive, independent, and self-reliant America. But can that lost glory really be revived in a world where China already dictates the rhythm of global trade? If you want to understand how far this rivalry can go, and what it reveals about the new balance of global power, subscribe to Tellnomics, like this video, and stay tuned. Because what's coming next is a battle for the oceans, and for the future. The rise of maritime China was no historical accident. It was a national project, carefully engineered from the top down. It began in the early 2000s when China joined the World Trade Organization. From that moment, Beijing laid out clear goals in its 10th five-year plan, centered on two priorities: expanding its ports and dominating the shipbuilding industry. According to China's Ministry of Transport, between 2002 and 2022, the country built more than 60 large-scale ports and modernized hundreds of shipyards along its coastline. This infrastructure became the heart of a silent revolution, the transformation of China into the floating factory of the world. But the secret to this transformation wasn't just infrastructure, it was people. China's labor force exceeds 700 million, and over 150 million of them have technical or higher education, according to the World Bank. That combination of scale and skill created something almost no competitor could replicate. While the United States outsourced production overseas, China invested heavily in naval engineering, metallurgy, and automation. The result? A self-reinforcing industrial cycle. Every ship built reduced costs, attracted more orders, and further strengthened China's competitive edge. Ask yourself this: how did a country that once relied on imported goods become indispensable to the global economy? The answer lies in strategy. In 2010, Beijing officially declared shipbuilding a strategic national industry, unlocking massive state credit lines and tax incentives. According to the China Development Bank, public financing for the sector exceeded $130 billion by 2018. This state support turned companies like the China State Shipbuilding Corporation into global giants capable of outperforming every shipyard in Japan and South Korea combined. While the rest of the world raced for efficiency, China was competing for power. Each ship launched wasn't just a commercial product, it was a geopolitical statement. The stronger its shipbuilding industry grew, the weaker the West's capacity to respond became. Today, according to Clarkson's research, China accounts for more than 52% of all tonnage currently under construction worldwide. But here's the question few dare to ask. What happens when the country that controls global trade also controls the very vessels that make it possible? Imagine an industry so strategic that every ship launched into the sea becomes a piece on the global chessboard. That's the true essence of China's maritime supremacy. Its dominance in shipbuilding wasn't born from industrial strength alone, but from a rare mix of state planning, public capital, and long-term geopolitical foresight. Between 2010 and 2018, the Chinese government injected around $132 billion in direct support to its shipbuilding sector, according to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS. And that figure doesn't even account for low-interest loans, debt forgiveness, or capital infusions from state-owned banks and strategic conglomerates. Beijing wasn't just building ships to transport goods. It was constructing an infrastructure of global influence. While China built an industrial empire, the United States was moving in the opposite direction. Every year, the nation imported more and produced less. According to the U.S. Department of Commerce, America's shipbuilding industry today represents less than 0.01% of global commercial vessel output. In contrast, from 2022 to 2024, China received orders for more than 4,000 large vessels. That disparity isn't just a statistic. It's a brutal snapshot of two diverging paths. One nation chose intervention and planning, the other liberalization and outsourcing. But China's real advantage isn't only in numbers. It's in the economic cycle it created. Mass production drives down costs. Lower costs attract more clients. More clients justify new state subsidies. It's a self-sustaining loop of efficiency, one that free market economies struggle to compete with. And that raises a fundamental question. How does a country built on market freedom confront a rival powered by state capitalism? That contrast fuels what many analysts call the new trade war. And the man willing to reignite it is Donald Trump. He believes he can return the United States to its lost industrial power. But the price of that ambition might be nothing less than the stability of global trade itself. Donald Trump knows that challenging China requires more than speeches. It demands economic impact. His new proposal aims to do something unprecedented: impose million-dollar tariffs on every ship built, operated, or owned by Chinese entities that docks in American ports. The idea sounds simple, but its effects could be seismic. According to the U.S. Department of Commerce, these tariffs would start at $1 million per docking and could reach $3.5 million, depending on the vessel's size and origin. That means a Chinese ship making weekly stops in the U.S. could pay tens of millions of dollars a year in fees. The goal? To finance the rebuilding of America's shipbuilding industry while simultaneously applying economic pressure on its primary geopolitical rival. But Trump's plan goes even further. He wants to extend tariffs to foreign companies that own any ship built in China, a move that Bloomberg Economics estimates could impact over 40% of the world's maritime carriers. It's a direct confrontation policy, one that could reignite a global trade war at full scale. Experts at the Peterson Institute for International Economics warn that such measures could drive shipping costs up by as much as 15%, further fueling U.S. inflation already strained by high interest rates and mounting public debt. Trump's logic is clear. Turn the sea into a political weapon. To him, every Chinese vessel docking on U.S. soil is a symbol of lost power, and reversing that loss is worth any cost. But those tariffs could trigger unintended consequences. Beyond the economic shock, they could divert major trade routes away from American ports entirely. According to a UNCTAD report, maritime sanctions of this kind could cut U.S. port cargo volume by up to 20%. Trump rallies supporters with the cry, "We will rebuild our shipyards," yet critics call it industrial illusionism. They argue the nation no longer has the infrastructure, labor force, or time to recover 8 decades of decline. Still, Trump insists the sacrifice is necessary to restore America's economic independence. But can an empire be rebuilt through tariffs alone? Or will this crusade sink before it even leaves port? Rebuilding a shipbuilding empire isn't just a matter of tariffs. It's a matter of ecosystem. Every vessel that sails requires the synchronized effort of thousands of companies, engineers, welders, suppliers, and shipyards. In the United States, that ecosystem has all but vanished. According to the Congressional Research Service, the country currently has fewer than 20 major commercial shipyards in operation, while China boasts more than 300. And the problem isn't just scale, it's cost. A cargo ship built in China costs about $55 million, while a similar vessel constructed in the United States can exceed $330 million, according to Clarkson's research. That gap explains why, between 2022 and 2024, U.S. shipyards produced only a dozen large vessels, while Chinese shipyards delivered thousands. To revive such an industry, the United States would need to do something it hasn't done in decades: invest massively in manufacturing and direct subsidies. Yet the nation has grown accustomed to the opposite: cutting costs, outsourcing production, and relying on financial capital. Today, nearly 80% of the American economy is based on services, according to the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis. In other words, Trump's vision seeks to resurrect an economic model that no longer exists, like trying to revive Detroit in the 1950s, but on a global maritime scale. Some argue the only realistic path forward is cooperation with allies. Japan and South Korea still dominate advanced sectors of shipbuilding and could supply the technology, components, and expertise needed for revival. But Trump's America First rhetoric stands in direct contradiction to that idea. His vision is one of total self-sufficiency, which risks turning the naval reconstruction dream into an isolated and unsustainable project. Even so, one argument continues to resonate with voters: national security. For many Americans, relying on Chinese ships to transport U.S. goods is more than a vulnerability. It's an existential threat. The ocean has once again become the frontier where global power is tested. And beneath all the political slogans lies something deeper: fear. The fear of dependence. The fear of realizing too late that the economic war has already begun. Beneath all the talk of jobs and tariffs lies a deeper emotion shaping Washington's decisions: fear. Inside the Pentagon and Congress, a growing concern is taking hold. Almost every ship that sustains the American economy was either built in China or operates under companies tied to it. According to the U.S. Department of Defense, more than 97% of American imports arrive by sea, and about 60% of that volume depends on vessels constructed or maintained in Chinese shipyards. In a crisis or conflict, Beijing could disrupt trade routes, delay key shipments, or create logistical choke points, all without firing a single shot. For strategists, that scenario is intolerable. The U.S. Navy, still the most powerful in the world, faces a paradox: unmatched military strength, but insufficient industrial capacity to sustain it over time. The Navy admits that building a new destroyer now takes 7 years, while Chinese shipyards can deliver equivalent warships in less than 3. That gap represents more than efficiency. It represents strategic leverage. This is where Donald Trump anchors his message. By reviving the rhetoric of naval reconstruction, he's not merely speaking about economics, he's appealing to sovereignty. His vision is to give the United States back control over its maritime destiny. Yet, Economists like Nobel laureate Paul Krugman warn that such a policy could unleash an inflationary spiral and provoke a new wave of global trade retaliation. If every Chinese ship must pay millions to dock, consumer prices in America could soar by as much as 20%, eroding household purchasing power and intensifying public frustration. Still, ignoring the issue could be just as dangerous. The Rand Corporation reminds us that whoever controls the maritime routes controls the global economy. And right now, that compass points firmly toward China. The United States thus stands at a 21st century crossroads, torn between global efficiency and national security, between open markets and strategic independence. The sea has always mirrored the power of nations. Today, its waves reflect a new, silent struggle. Who will command world trade in the decades to come? If you want to understand how this battle for maritime dominance could reshape the planet's economic map, subscribe to Tellnomics, like this video, and share it. Because the future won't be decided on solid ground. It's being built right now beneath the oceans.